Welcome to Truest Blood, the official True Blood podcast.
I'm Kristen Bauer.
And I'm Deborah Ann Wool.
And you've been invited in.
I want to do bad things with you. On Truest Blood.
Welcome back to Truest Blood, where we sink our fangs into the series episode by episode.
This week, we groove to the rhythm of episode 110.
Yay!
Titled, I Don't Want to Know, written by Chris Offut and directed by Scott Winant.
110 is just packed to the gills with thrills.
It is.
And we were especially excited to speak with Sam Trammell, who expertly plays Bon Temps bar owner and dog lover, Sam Merlotte.
Yeah, so good to talk to Sam. The plotlines start to come to a head this episode as our main characters have to face some really hard truths.
Mm-hmm.
And Bon Temps' most colorful residents step out to celebrate Renee and Arlene. So without further ado, let's face the music and dance.
This week on True Blood.
Standing in Sookie's bathroom in his Altogether, Sam finally reveals to Sookie his secret. He is a shapeshifter. Sookie questions him about his abilities, only to learn the supernatural world is far larger than she had guessed.
What else is there?
More than you can imagine.
However, his secret leaves her feeling lied to more than relieved, and she storms off in a huff.
Amy discovers that Jason has been feeding Eddie on the sly and decides the best way to keep him close is to pretend that she too feels empathy for the vampire. She feeds Jason a fantasy in which Eddie attaches to them via Stockholm Syndrome.
And then eventually, we don't even have to keep him locked up anymore. He could just be in the house with us, kind of like he's...
Like a pet.
Yeah.
This works, but not for long. At Renee and Arlene's engagement party, Jason realizes he's let Amy get the upper hand. Once home, he attempts to free Eddie, but Amy gets the drop on him and instead stakes Eddie in the heart.
Tara visits Miss Jeanette for her exorcism and has a powerful vision, allowing she and her mother to reconcile. But Tara's peace is short-lived. Out of the blue, she runs into Miss Jeanette, who turns out to be Nancy, a struggling mother, a loving grandmother, and a con artist.
Tell him how you charged me $800 to spit in my face and poison me.
Tara spares her mother the truth, but later that night, drunk and disorderly, she wrecks her car, avoiding a naked woman and a pig standing stock still in the middle of the road.
Meanwhile, Sookie narrowly escapes yet another attack by the town serial killer. And Bill pleads his case to the vampire magister. It seems his punishment is to replace the vampire he killed by making another. Out of the trunk of a Camaro comes a young girl begging for her life.
If you take me home, I won't say a word to Mom and Dad or anybody. Please, please, please help me.
There's no help for you, child.
Bill tries to make things easier on her, but the magister will have none of it, and we cut on Bill feeding vigorously on what soon will be his progeny.
So, Sam shares his cute ass, by the way. That is a really, really, he has really nice ass and
very
legs.
important part of this opening.
Yes, very important part of this opening. I had no idea. I don't know how I didn't know. But anyway, he shares his story.
Yeah, well, we've been building to this. The writers and Sam Trammell have been leaving these clues about what is up with Sam Merlotte, and we finally get to know a bit more about his story.
These clues were left so expertly now that we know and we look back.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Mm-hmm. But he really has the worst parents ever.
Ever. These flashbacks, man, that they just left in the middle of the day, left all his stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, just the absolute worst. And, he doesn't know his biological parents either. So,
right.
Yeah, he had no sort of guidance in this, strange, whether you would sort of equate this metaphorically to any sort of coming of age story, no one was there to really help him find his way through this. But my favorite thing is he is one of possibly the hardest lines ever. It's always hard in shows when you have to like straight up state who you are.
And he's standing there naked.
He's standing there naked.
And then he has to say
the hardest line any actor can receive.
I'm not the killer, I swear. I'm a shapeshifter.
Shut the fuck up.
And her response is perfect.
Her response is the only thing you could say.
I know.
I know that. I love that.
It's so
love
perfect.
that whole sequence.
Yeah. When especially because, Sookie is she's a fudge girl. She's not necessarily always a cusser.
That's
so
true. She's a fudge girl.
Yeah. To give her this moment to kind of
shut the fudge up. Just wouldn't be the same.
To lean into that. But yeah, they go on to talk about it. We tease werewolves and a lot more. So we're really starting to expand this world a bit more.
I thought that was so interesting that he hates werewolves.
Yes. He was very adamant about that.
Yeah. He was very clear. Mm-hmm.
We also have Tara facing some demons this episode.
Yeah.
Quite literally, she has to face herself during this exorcism, herself as a child. And again, it is so powerful. Rutina is acting her ass off. And I love she has this like sob that feels so ancient, so from that
deep.
Scared little girl that has just never gotten to express herself. Amazing.
Because Miss Jeanette, we find out, is a bit of a con artist, but that was very, very real.
It did work,
It did
if
work.
Anything, if you listen to our interview with Aisha, she talks about how, she's just, Miss Jeanette almost doesn't matter as much as the experience. Mm-hmm. And the experience is real and powerful. And she's there to sort of help support, Tara through that.
Yes.
And it really does. I mean, the happiness, the very short-lived happiness that Letty Mae and Tara get is so sweet.
And even though I know it's not going to last, I'm hoping this time it will. This rewatch.
Maybe we got an alternate cut or something.
Yes.
Where Letty Mae and Tara just ride off into the sunset eating their crawdads, and it's all
writers
good.
Are so sick.
They're mean.
They're mean.
So yeah, and then it throws her off on this, sort of tangent. She starts to drink. She's feeling, down on herself again, and she spares her mother, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm. She does.
She's out on the road, and she sees this naked woman and this pig.
Mm-hmm. Like you do,
Like you do, which is, again, such a fantastic opening reveal for what we're now setting up for the next season.
Yes.
Oh, and I also noticed during her exorcism, little Tara, young Tara, has her eyes blacked out, which is what we see next season under the influence of what happens next season. We won't spoil that for you yet. So I'm curious if that was intentional or what they were playing with there.
Mm-hmm. I was wondering if they were like, wow, that was a really cool effect. That would really
bring that back.
Let's bring that back. But they couldn't have made that poor little actress wear those lenses.
I don't know.
I've had to wear those where your whole eye is covered. They're challenging, exceedingly challenging.
Yeah, so maybe that was a digital effect.
Hopefully that was CGI.
Today. Yeah. So we also have Jason. So everyone's facing the music this episode. Yeah. Jason has to face the music about Amy and who she really is. So we start with, I think, Kristin, you and I, one of our favorite scenes, favorite collections of lines and performance, which is Amy and Eddie in the basement as Amy explains to us why she is so wonderful.
I'm an organic vegan and my carbon footprint is minuscule. Because I know that ultimately, we're all just a single living being. But you are not.
The writing for her.
That whole speech, sophomore year in college, I walked away from a full academic scholarship so I could go to the poor Guatemalan village and build their first irrigation system. And she just kills it.
She kills it. I mean, it's that perfect sort of self-righteous, like we said, we tease Southerners a lot on this show, but we want to take equal shots at the sort of Northern Eastern superiority stereotype as well vegan. That she brings in, right? And, that she has this sense that she is absolutely the, unsmudgeable,
Yes.
She is perfect in all ways, and Eddie better watch. It's also that great moment too where Eddie says something, Jason's not as evolved as she is, and she goes, I know. Not even hesitation. She's just like, yeah, I know. But he's working them, right? He's working Amy and he's working Jason, and Eddie knows how to get under each of their skin. Oh, I love Eddie so much.
I love Eddie so much, and it almost works.
It almost works.
Mm-hmm.
Amy realizes she's going to lose Jason if she doesn't figure this out.
Yeah, they have that scene in the bathroom. Yes.
Hilarious
Hilarious.
plan.
It's so good. I mean, when she says, what Stockholm Syndrome is, and Jason says it's a disease, and she's like, no, and he's like, I almost had it. Like,
right. Oh, it's very, very funny. But yeah, that she's able to kind of get him to her side. But I think it's when Jason starts testing it by his friends and testing it by people, because he lies, right? They ask him where he met Amy, and he says Fantasia, but he doesn't tell them why. And it's because some part of him knows that there's something off about her, something is wrong. He can't really be honest. And, he then gets this advice to get the upper hand. But I really think it's Lafayette who scares the sense back into him.
Bitch, what? You think life is just this one fucking game that you always win no matter how many dead folk are piling up around you? Maudette, Dawn, your grandma.
Wow.
Yeah.
Another incredible, everything that Nelson did was perfection.
Yeah.
I love this tough guy when he comes out.
When he's
just
caring,
shows his history, that's it.
He's caring. He went to go find Eddie, and of course he needed blood, but he saw this crime scene essentially and knows something happened. And I think he's afraid for his own safety for sure. But I think in a lot of ways he's also like, hey, people are dying, right? These women, your grandmother, possibly Eddie. And, he goes on to say, and not me, I'm not going to be the one next. And of course we're teasing a little bit the spoiler from the book.
Right.
It's so wonderful that Lafayette is the one again to scare some sense into Jason.
Yes. And these things together do affect Jason. And he tries to do the right thing. He has a moment where he realizes, I'm out. This is wrong. Yeah. The two things that he can kind of get that.
We needed Jason to do that.
We needed him to get the upper hand, wake up.
After all the mistakes that he's made this season.
Yes.
We needed him to do the right thing, to make the hard choice.
Yes.
And he does. Unfortunately, Amy's just a little bit faster and a little bit smarter.
Boy, that's a moment when she stakes him. It really comes out of nowhere.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And she's capable of it, but you're still sort of shocked. And then, Stephen Root gives that incredible scream.
Yes. And Ryan sells it with the goo and how he scrambles back, trying to get it off his hands.
And you'll see they're going to cut to this moment as we go forward over and over again, because it really lives with Jason. It haunts him for quite a while.
As it should.
Finally, we're going to move on to Bill is also facing some music. He's at the Tribunal.
He's at the Tribunal, Dad.
With our friends Eric and Pam and Chow.
Yep, back there. Yep, looking cool.
Yeah.
And I guess, okay, we'll save the best for last, because Željko is such a magister. I mean, he's really just so incredible.
He's so great. I'll share my Jelko story from that evening.
Yes.
That really, especially as a young actor, and this is my first day on this show, and we'll get to that.
It's crazy.
But I hadn't really done much film acting work, so I didn't know the sort of specific pressures that can come with that. So we're filming these scenes. I think it took 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
2 nights. Yes, 2 nights.
Yeah.
And both times, Jelko's coverage, which means, the camera films one side of a 180-degree line. And then, so everything is lit on that side. Then we switch all the lights, turn everything around, and we do the other side of that line.
Mm-hmm.
So since it's him versus a whole group of vampires,
Yeah.
the opposite side is a much bigger job. So they saved his side for last because it seems like it would be simpler and faster.
Yeah.
What that means for a night shoot, however, is that he had to do all of his acting, which are these long, complex speeches at the very end of the night as the sun is coming up and everyone's panicking. We're running out of time. Like that sun comes up, you're done.
They put a huge screen over his head to try to stop the daylight.
To keep it from, and if you watch, thumbs up, kudos to our lighting team and our cinematographer, you can't tell, but it was almost really morning as he's doing his stuff. And what, as a young actor, I was so impressed by, he didn't let it throw him. He didn't speed up and start saying his lines faster or get panicked.
Right.
He was very deliberate. He gave the performance he wanted to give. Yeah. And I will never forget that. And I try to remember that every time I'm in a panicky moment. And he didn't stall, but he took his time during the moments that were his. And I'm so impressed.
So much pressure. I forget where it was, but I went up to him and said, "Wow, really well done. That's a tough situation." And he said something that led me to believe he was disappointed. He was kind of wishing he'd had more takes. Yeah. He felt like, I don't know, he was doubting himself a bit, but you never could see it. Like we always do.
Yeah.
Always do. When I'm every night, morning, driving home, I would be saying those lines again to the steering wheel. Sometimes the next day. And so it just happens, but he didn't let it flap him.
Yeah. Well, here is an example of his brilliance.
There are those among us who think differently.
Do you question my authority? I am the Magister. I was trained in the Inquisition, and I am the adjudicator for every vampire territory in North America. As the humans say, the humans you love more than your own kind, back your shit down!
I started to well up.
I know. But also I want to give credit to Nathan here too, because the music underneath him growls.
Doesn't it?
It literally growls when he hits that moment. And that's Nathan Barr brilliance really there. And not that Jelko didn't get there. He did. But it just heightens that. And that's an example of a composer supporting an actor and helping them get something really special out of a moment. So impressed.
It's so impressive. And that dialogue, Inquisition.
I know. It's so great.
So great.
What's amazing, I wanted to include Bill's little line in there too, because it is my wonderful mainstreaming daddy. So, Bill has to make a vampire. And we know this a little bit, but we'll learn it more. Bill hates his maker, right? He did not want to be a vampire. Becoming a vampire took everything away from him. So there's a reason that in 200 years plus, he's never done this.
Yeah.
So I'm really, I think it's a really apt punishment for him, even if the Magister isn't aware of that. So now we come into Jessica Hamby.
So Deb,
scene. Yeah.
How'd you get the role?
Oh boy, let's do my little interview now. So again, it's amazing how all of us have these sharp memories of our audition, because Jessica Hamby was just a recurring. She was going to be 1 or 2 episodes. And so I had a scene from each episode, this one and the next one, to audition. So one of them is this in peril and the next one is very different.
Yes.
And I remember in preparation for it, it's saying that stuff about how your senses were heightened when you became a vampire. So I remember things like eating my own tears and like trying to see the night sky in a different way, like doing weird things like that. Like I could taste different. So I had, preparation like that I did. And I went into the office, and for some reason that day, I was sitting in that lovely office of Alan's, on the lot. For some reason that day, every actor that was supposed to go before me, had something to be at next, or, needed to, their parking meter was going to run out or something like that. So everyone kept asking, and I was like, oh yeah, sure, go ahead. So I ended up like letting 3 or 4 people kind of go ahead of me just because I had time. And I think I ended up maybe being the last person to audition that day.
Oh my gosh.
And I went in and I was rolling all over the ground and crying and eating my tears. And
so you did the full thing that we see on screen?
I did the full thing. I kind of don't know how to half-ass things.
Well, yeah. I don't know how you would do that halfway.
This scene halfway. So, I think I really appreciated Aisha's story about her audition, because same thing. I really tried to be as much in that place as I could in that room. I wanted to, for this scene, really focus in on that idea of prey, and obviously moving on, focus on the idea of being a predator. So I watched animal footage of, lions taking down antelope. I watched crocodiles. I wanted these like primal old, like crocodiles were good, sharks were good, because they are ancient, right? And they've been stalking and predating, things like that. But this time I focused mostly on deer. Jessica felt like a doe to me. She felt innocent, a little skittish, And the interesting thing about deer, as you watch an animal take a deer down, they fight like crazy. Until they realize there's no hope. And then they just go limp. They just give into it. And that was so fascinating to watch. And so I spent a lot of time creating certainly the fear of a vampire, creating the vampire in Bill and what that would mean. And especially as a young Christian girl who's thinking, I need to go to heaven, taking that away is even more terrifying. But in the literal physicality of it, I decided I was going to fight Steve as hard as I could. And I know he only half liked that because he was like, I'm super strong. Shouldn't I be able to? I think this came from him. He doesn't want to just lock her down. He feels bad about this. So he doesn't want to hold her in a vice grip, but he holds her just strong enough that she can't get out. And it becomes that heartbreaking moment of just like, she's fighting until just decides you have to give in. And I even think it's something biological that your body does when it realizes that it can't get away. And we were talking about this a little bit earlier, that what possums
do. It's the dorsal vagal shutdown. There's a vagus nerve that literally shuts the body down so you won't feel it.
And so I kind of wanted to lean into that sort of scientific, natural backing, and I think Alan had shared with me, or someone had shared with me, that they were going with like a nature basis for vampires. And so same thing. I wanted to kind of come from that same place. But the night of, Scott Winant, who was my favorite director we've had on this show.
Amazing.
And all of our directors are wonderful, but Scott and I had sort of a special connection, and we are still always looking to work together. He came into the hair and makeup trailer before we shot while I was getting ready. And he said to me, look, I know this is going to be a hard one. If you ever need a minute to like collect yourself or prepare, he gave me full permission. And I thought that was so cool.
That's
for a young, inexperienced actor. And then Steven was so wonderful on the day of like hearing out my thoughts and working with me, and also expressing his, what his acting thoughts and his process, was in preparing. And I think it led to a really terrifying and beautiful scene in the end.
It is. And, I was there watching you, didn't know you, didn't want to bug you and be like, hey, how you doing? But, because you were very focused and you came out of that trunk, game on, spurs a jangling, ready to go, ready to take this town. And it was incredible and beautiful. And like, there was, if someone had said she's totally green, this is her first job, it'd be like, what?
And for me, there's a shift in the scene as well, where Jessica goes from thinking they're going to kill me, I better fight for my life. And then she shifts to, all right, if I'm going to die, I've made my peace with it. I'll go to heaven. And it's after he tries to glamour her and she comes out that I realize, oh, this isn't murder. He's going to turn me into a monster. And that means no heaven. And so that was kind of, there's sort of those three, that evolution for her through that night.
Yeah. It's such a powerful sequence. It really...
It's just, it was a well-written scene.
I mean, we've heard the story someone told where the next day they were like, okay, we got to keep this girl around.
Well, I have the things I've heard about it. It was a 2-episode guest star that probably wasn't supposed to come back. So I, luckily they decided to have me back. I think for one, it's really fun to make Bill a maker, especially when it's fun. Jessica turns out a little different than we anticipate.
Yes.
And then 2, I had heard that originally Jessica was supposed to look like Sookie, so that it was even harder for Bill to have to do this. But I obviously don't look anything like Anna. So luckily, I guess I did a good enough job that I booked the role despite not matching the description.
Well, you killed it, sister.
Thank you. Well, now for a quick bite.
The supernatural world of True Blood is expanding, and so must our show Bible. We now have shapeshifters, and just like vampires, there are rules by which they are governed.
Rule number 1, a shifter must have a real animal on which to imprint. However, the shift happens spontaneously during the full moon, but they are not werewolves, okay?
Rule number 2, for Sam, humans are too complex to shift into, despite what you may see at the bar. And while he can shift into most animals, it doesn't automatically give him all their abilities.
Rule number 3, the ability to shift is hereditary, but since Sam's adoptive parents were the worst, we have yet to learn what might be possible for shifters when properly guided. So while we have a lot of people facing the music, facing truths this episode, we also have a dance this episode. Renee and Arlene are getting engaged and they have a big party. And what this does is allow the writers to focus on a lot of our ensemble characters, series regulars who maybe don't always get a lot of screen time just because they're not in the center of the plot, but they are nonetheless fantastic performers. And we want to spend a little time now sort of focusing on them.
Yes. Carrie Preston as Arlene Fowler. I mean, Carrie is
love her so much.
So terrific. Every line, every moment. I mean, her speech about being able to depend on Renee is so heartfelt. And then right back into the comedy again. Such facility.
Needs a break from all this anyhow. Well, thanks for having such a great time at my party.
She's so good every second on screen. She cracks me up. Absolutely delicious.
Absolutely wonderful. And we're, what's lovely is we're also slowly setting up this attraction from Terry Belfleur, who seems to like Arlene a little bit. And so we also want to spotlight Todd Lowe. He's fragile, he's kind, he's tortured, and he's so funny.
So good. I know. He's really, every second that he's on screen, every moment, every line, he makes so much of it. It's incredible.
Thank you, Terry. You are so sweet and reliable. I always know what to expect from you. No nasty surprises.
Well, that's just because you don't know me very well.
I'm just, my mind is going through all the great lines and him at Bill's dead meeting, with Grand's meeting, right? And he's there sobbing. And then the opossum penis necklace. I mean, it's just, he's so amazing. His comment about running naked in the woods, he's like, I've done that.
Yeah, he's the most honest character, I think, on True Blood.
He's the most honest character. And Jim Perrick as Hoyt Fortenberry is not completely unhonest. I mean, the sweetest, right? Under his mother's thumb.
Yes.
Friends with Jason and Renee, who completely outshine him.
I know.
Right? And he just wants to shine.
He just wants to shine in his own. And my favorite is when Jim really leans into this and doesn't judge it. I think it'd be easy for a guy to feel like, no, I want to be macho. But when he leans into the sort of sweet side, the innocent side of Hoyt, he just shines so much. But here's him trying to be more like Jason and Renee.
I plan on having about 6 more beers. And enough tequila to drown a Mexican sea captain, woman.
Speaking up to his mom, finally.
Oh, it's sort of perfect. It's it almost doesn't sound right in his mouth, which is the brilliance of the acting, right? Because that's not who Hoyt is, but he's trying it on. And it's just very funny. And it's a great setup for where his character is about to go.
Yeah. And my namesake, Chris Bauer.
Chris Bauer, the other Chris Bauer. As Andy Belfleur. I adore him in this season.
I adore him.
He's...
Oh, you know what? I just remembered. I don't know, season 5 or 6 or something. I asked a bunch of the crew ladies, like wardrobe, and I just took a survey on who's the sexiest to them. Like, who do they want, right? And it was always Chris Bauer.
Amazing. But what is so fantastic about him as Andy is he has one of the hardest jobs ever, which is the straight man, right? He has to play this sober cop. I think that's an interesting quirk to his character, that he doesn't drink, in a town that doesn't appreciate him or respect him. And unfortunately, I couldn't find a quote from this episode that really highlighted, Andy and that part of him, but I found a fun one from 104.
Make you hot, Jason? Killing girls and sticking it to them? No. See, I think it does. I think it turns you on. It sounds to me like it turns you on.
Right? That joke doesn't work unless Chris delivers that line before it perfectly.
That's it. So solid.
Oh, so solid.
He's dreamy.
He's a dreamy guy. And, we will be talking much more about Chris Bauer as this scene goes on. And especially, we've set up the sober bit. And again, as we move on, we'll see we're even going to play with that quite a bit.
Yes. And I just want to do a little throw out to this band.
Yes.
That plays at Merlotte. So it's so interesting.
Renee and Arlene really hit the jackpot.
Yeah. They got this big band somehow. Who paid for that? Because CC Adcock with his band, the Lafayette Marquis, are playing at Merlotte's. His music is described, I love this description, as Cajun, Zydeco, electric blues, and swamp pop.
Woo! Well, you couldn't get more True Blood than that. So kudos to Sam Merlotte for booking such a great band for Renee and Arlene's engagement party.
Yes.
We learn a lot about Sam Merlotte this episode. And to fill in all the details, we sat down with Sam Trammell, and he was so generous and gave us the scoop on what makes Mr. Merlotte such an enticing mystery man.
Yeah.
Hi, Sam.
Sam!
Thank you all so much. So nice talking to you all.
Yay. So we're so excited to speak with you because, we'll talk to you now here for episode 10 because we've just learned at the end of the last episode that Sam is a shifter. His deep dark secret.
Yes, I had.
That was a big moment.
As I recall, I had like a weird moment in episode 4 where I was writhing around on a bed.
In sheets.
It's everyone's favorite
sexual, quasi-sexual way, but not. But that was a little tease. And then yes, at the end of 9, I think I'm in Sookie's bed, and and then I have to explain it in 10. Yeah, very weird, very crazy.
It's very weird, but it's a wonderful tease throughout the whole first season. There's all shots of dogs running around, and sometimes you're there and sometimes you're not. Sometimes we think you're the murderer. Yeah. We have all kinds of teases.
Rewatching 10, I've forgotten that there was a whole whodunit. The first season was like a whodunit. It was like, did Sam
It's a murder mystery.
I did too.
And so I was because I remember they wanted me to look guilty or, look suspicious in a lot of some of the stuff.
We're asking everyone about their casting. Do you remember your casting process for Sam Merlotte?
Oh my God, yeah. First there was the audition. It was one of my last because I'd done so many network auditions and people just don't do that. The young people don't know what we're talking about. How
I know.
Yeah, I unfortunately I'm part of that group.
Are you kidding? Oh my God.
I never had to do the pilot season.
Scariest thing. I went into HBO, which was down in Santa Monica. It was full of people. You're sitting in a room with the other 3 guys you're up against. I can't remember who they were, who were auditioning for Sam Merlotte. And I remember it was that day. I left that place and I was driving through the rain. I just remember getting the part, and I was just so incredibly psyched because it was a really hot kind of property because Alan had done 6 Feet Under. And of course, he wrote American Beauty. I mean, it was definitely like, this is a thing.
This is a big deal.
So then they had me go back to read with Tara, People for Tara.
Oh,
okay.
And that's where I saw Anna. And it was me and Anna. I think we were the first people that got cast. And we were like, oh my God, can you believe it? This is crazy. And she was going out and reading with Bills. And yeah, I mean,
but even that's hilarious. Like multiple bills,
multiple
plural bills.
And I had and check this out. I had broken my nose in between getting the part and going in to do those reads, and I was convinced I was going to get fired. I had split my nose open.
Oh my gosh!
Surfing. And I was just
that's character to Sam
I was just
Merlotte.
like, it's over. My whole career's done. Like, I'm not going to. So I was trying to hide that because I had a meeting with Alan after I got the part. And then he asked me to come back and read with some people. But yeah, it was really scary.
Okay, so many questions to ask you, but because I feel like we know each other, Sam, and we did maybe 4 scenes.
I know. I know.
Yeah, and maybe just a few more.
We went to some of those.
Too,
we went to some of the Comic-Cons together, and oh my God, it was.
Those are bonding.
Kristin and I had so much fun. Oh my God. Kristin and I would see each other never while we were working, but always elsewhere. And I feel like I know her as well as anybody from the show. It's crazy, but we didn't really work together.
Isn't that weird?
But that was another.
We've been all commenting.
I know, but I'm sure you all talked about that. Like Deborah and I, we didn't have any. Did we have a single? Were we even on set?
I mean,
at the same time?
you hired me. You hired me to work at Merlotte, so we had a lot of like in passing
stuff. Very, very brief.
We would be, we would both be in the same location, but not like a scene. We never had a bonding, character-y moment.
Right.
As far as I remember, maybe we'll eat our words as we get further on in the show. But but somehow we talked because of table reads and because of, I think, just the general
PR
friendliness of everyone working in PR. I do feel like I know people that I never. I mean, even Janina, who like got this podcast, and she's a very close friend of mine. I never worked with Janina, not a single scene. But she's a very close friend now.
So now, Sam, I want to ask you, because you were there from the very first minute. And of course, I came in episode 4, Deb in episode 10, and we didn't go to Comic-Con the first year or years. And you've mentioned that at Comic-Con at the beginning, it was like, hey, come talk to us. We're doing a show over here. And by the time I got invited, we were the Beatles there. For those few blocks, we had security, and it was people slept overnight to get in the panel room. What was that like to go through that arc?
I was just thinking about this. We all took a bus to Comic-Con the first year because we were shooting at Hollywood Center Studios, which is over further east in Hollywood.
Yes.
And it's so tiny. It's even smaller than the one where we were. And I remember we met there. We did the pilot episode. Then there was a while before we got picked up. Then we got picked up and we did 3 episodes there. And then there was the writer's strike. I remember nobody had seen the show. Nobody knew about it. And we were just all wandering around and getting zero attention, like nothing. And
oh my gosh.
We were at a tiny table. I remember going, I think Sue Nagel. I think it was with Sue Nagel. It could have been season 2 at Comic-Con, but I remember going with Sue Nagel and looking for birthday presents for like her kids or something, and like just walking
with
around.
The president of HBO. We might as well leave our booth because no one cares.
Nobody knows.
No one's here.
Yeah, but it felt like we were handing out flyers. We felt about the same level of, like we got a show tonight. Come see our band.
Come see our band.
Like a garage band.
Yeah. That's about what it felt like. And and then of course it steadily grew to like police escorts.
It sure did.
Like that
Ballroom
whole
20, Hall H.
Yeah,
all the fun,
limos, the whole thing for days in the best hotel room.
So I'm curious, as one of the only genuine Southerners on the show, what was that like for you? Did you feel like, oh, this is great, I have something to bring to it? Or, did you give your input at any point? How does that, what meaning did that have
it made it sort of, it made it a little closer to home and comfortable because, you feel like you're going less out on a limb with like the accent and with the vibe. And it was cool too because my family's all from Louisiana. And, I was born there. I grew up for the most part in West Virginia, but I was born there. And it was really incredible. We did that episode where, because we would only go down once or twice to Louisiana to shoot exteriors, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it was the first year. It was that episode where I'm running naked across the across the hill, and Andy sees me and Andy and Todd, and they're like, "Oh, what is that?" But we were shooting. We drove through. We were shooting near this town called Doyline. It was the closest town, and that's where all my father's family's from. It's the smallest town in the world. It's like 500 people.
Wow.
And we drove past the cemetery where a lot of my relatives are buried, and we were shooting at a lake that used to be owned by one of my relatives a long time ago. But I should have told some of my family not to watch because my great aunt watched. I was fully because I always forget about sex scenes. I just do. I just forget about.
Right.
I just am like, oh yeah, right. My great aunt is watching, vampire sex at a, which is really kind of speedy and kind of shocking if you've never seen it, especially if somebody's chained up as well. I mean, it was pretty hardcore.
Not even your sex scenes, just sex scenes in general on our show.
God.
I mean, that
my
scene
mom
was
like,
very
why
intense.
didn't you? Was like, well, Aunt Jane Ann was surprised that, she's going to keep watching, but boy, that was a mountain to get over. And I think it was like the first episode or the second where somebody's getting it from behind, like chained up. Vampire speed.
Yep. First episode.
Right. I should have worn my great aunt.
Right.
Yep.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. I do have to ask you about being naked, or it wouldn't be a good interview for your character. I only had to be naked off screen for 2 seconds in front of Alex. And I worked out I didn't eat for 6 weeks and worked out really hard. And thank God I was human then and I could get a tan. I got a spray tan. But how was that? You just got used to it, huh?
Yeah. I mean, but the tanning part made you feel better. And there was I went from getting actual tans to having makeup applied, which took forever.
Oh, yeah.
And we did that for a year or two. And then, then we figured out the spray tan, which was like, boom. But then it was a whole, I mean, the level of fitness on our show was so off the charts. and I just wanted to be a
Ryan.
bartender. Like, I'm a bartender.
Yes,
Can
I
I
know.
just be a bartender? But you can't.
Yes.
Because you have Quentin.
Ryan.
You had you had
Anna.
Sarsgaard. You had
Steven.
Anna. You had Steven. And then, of course,
Alcide came along,
Alcide.
Joe.
And then every dude was ripped. And these are all people who are 10 years younger than me. Well, not Steven, but they're all like, come on. I've been full frontal, fully naked on stage 3 times in front of live people with nothing on. So I was I was like, yeah, I could do this.
Yeah, see that was my feeling about it. Same thing. I'd been naked on stage and done things like that. I don't feel squeamish about being naked in front of people in general. It's naked on the internet that bothers me.
Absolutely.
Because people take it and do whatever they want with it, and it lives there forever, and they say the cruelest things and the most disgusting things. So
True.
I shied away from being, I was like, you can film me, but you're never going to see more than a skimpy bathing suit. In terms of my decisions, simply because of that, and my husband and future children and things like that. It just, that felt like the right choice for me at the time. But same thing, the actual nudity part of it never really threw me very much.
I think
that's
it would
a big
throw
difference.
me. I think it might throw me more now because of the internet, because it's so much more, because there's just so much more. It's doubled or tripled, don't you think? Since Instagram.
We ended up speaking with Shadaliza and Lynn Doherty of The Vault because, again, without social media, that doesn't exist. This kind of space outside of the show to talk about it, other than IMDb comment section or the comments underneath articles or recaps. So it's so interesting that The Vault was also sort of ahead of its time, as HBO was with the marketing, as Alan Ball was with a lot of the social concepts in the show. So much of this is right on that precipice. It's cool.
Yeah, it really was.
So Sam, I'm also want to ask you, some of seeing in this first season that's so interesting, and part of why I think they push that maybe Sam is the killer thing is this wonderful flip that you can do that I don't see very many actors having this ability. You are so nice and so genuine and seem so harmless.
And then
as Sam Merlotte, and then there's a flip a switch that goes off, a flip that happens, and you have such a lovely, honest connection to anger or whatever that is. And that's something for me personally that I have to work on as an actor. But it's impressive, and it gives Sam such
depth,
mystery, and excitement. Was that something you did intentionally, or was it written?
Wow, that's so nice of you to say. That's a really nice compliment. I where when I got mad, is that
with Sookie?
So
yeah,
with Sookie, you sort of fly off
on
the
sidewalk after having pie.
That's true.
You when the vamps walk in, you break a pool cue like you're gonna stake a guy. I mean, there are these moments, and it's really the contrast. That wouldn't be so crazy for Pam to do or something like that, but because Sam is very calm and seems so reasonable and very helpful and sweet and in love, and then this switch, and it's just a beautiful acting workshop, frankly.
Oh God. I mean, we all have so many characteristics about us. And I mean, every human being, right? It has so many different sides. I just happen to have maybe those two polar opposites, because I do have a temper, in real life.
That's interesting.
It's interesting.
I do
it's
like it.
Hard to believe.
I do, I do. And I I think I have a thing of the nice guy, the nice, because there is that too, which I've hated in my life. I've kind of disliked the very thing that is actually the thing that's probably I should capitalize on the most, or one of the, we all sort of dislike parts of ourselves, and some of the best parts of ourselves we probably dislike,
It's really true.
And I
and they're
think,
taken advantage of.
I think in acting, I've always tried to shy away from those roles and tried to be, I don't know, try to be the bad guy more, this or that. And I think, to be totally honest with you guys, playing Sam in the first season, I was frustrated with, because it was just kind of the nice guy who was pining after Sookie. And I really wanted, I remember I wrote this whole 5-page thing to Alan Ball when I got the part. And it was this whole theory about shape-shifting and about how, you could get addicted to the shift and like this sort of addiction. So I was trying to weave in problems for Sam, like,
right.
Like kind of dark problems for Sam from the beginning before we even started. He didn't even respond to it. I don't even think he responded to it. He definitely didn't read that yet. He's like, what
He's
the
like,
hell
sure,
are you
keep doing your
talking
homework,
about?
kid.
It was like this, it was really deep philosophical thing, about, this mythology I was creating about shifting and trying to keep it. Yeah, I was trying to go dark with it.
But Sam, you have something about you that I find interesting because it's a really unique thing. And I don't know if it's an ability. I don't know what it is, but it's a feeling that I can never, ever catch you acting. Now, Meryl Streep, one of the greatest actors we've ever had, I see her acting. I know she's acting. I'm not fooled. I don't think she just walked onto the set and it's a documentary, but I do feel that way about John Wayne, Patricia Arquette, Spencer Tracy, and you.
Oh my God.
And since I can...
one hand, Sam.
I love that's what a crowd. I love
Isn't
it.
that a bizarre grouping though, right? It's like, it's a very unique thing. I used to watch Patricia Arquette and I'm like, wow, it's just fascinating because I can't. And then when I saw you on the show, I was like, oh, he has that thing. And since I can't interview any of them.
Yeah. It's so funny. Like,
how do you do it?
No, but it's funny because I was watching, because you know how you're hard on your, people, you watch yourself.
Yeah.
And look, there's some stuff I watch back and I'm like, oh, that was really good. But the episode that we're talking about, 10, I swear, I was watching that and I was like, oh God. I was totally seeing, because I remember some things I was trying in certain parts of it.
Right.
And I remember, and I'm seeing myself do that. I'm like, you idiot. Why are you doing that? I was trying.
But that's exactly why you see it, though. We don't see it because we don't know what you were trying to do. We just see
it's
brilliance.
surprising, but I'm glad you did.
You see it.
Glad you did.
Oh no, we don't see
do
it.
not.
I'm putting you in this grouping with John Wayne, my favorite.
You're on the one hand of Kristin's best actors.
That's right.
Right?
Well, the
Spencer
ones that
Tracy?
can't do that. Ones that don't know how to
Can't
act.
tell. The ones she can't catch.
I think it's, for me, painful. Deb and I didn't watch ourselves in the show when it aired. So
didn't watch the show?
Yeah, we didn't watch the show.
Wait a minute.
This is the first time?
Yeah.
No. I cannot believe you're watching the show for the first time.
So episode 10, this episode is my first scene.
Yeah.
I had a panic attack, a genuine panic attack as I watched
Oh my God,
it
you
for
are
this
so
podcast.
fantastic, Deborah. I specifically
fantastic.
remember that scene, because when it came on, I was like, oh my God, this is where Deborah's begging for her life. And it was it just was so just beautiful and awful.
Beautiful.
And
awful, yeah.
But you really felt like somebody was begging for their life, and it was made it so hard on Bill. And
that was my job. My job was to make things very hard for Steven.
Oh my God, it was so touching and
thank you.
Lovely. I was just like, oh my God, this woman's on the show forever. She's incredible.
Aw.
Yeah, that's what they said. Like, who was it? We were interviewing Deb, who went back to, maybe it was Alex Wu or somebody who they said the next day, they were like, oh my God, you should see this girl. We got to keep her. And I was there when it was filmed.
Right. Well, then
I know
then we'll
you were in the background. I was like, yes, Kristen Bauer's there, and then Jelko.
Damn.
I was rolling my eyes, hand on the hip, and everyone is brilliant. Like everyone is brilliant.
Yeah,
you're brilliant,
really
Sam. Every person cast is unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, it's like Rutina is someone I can't get over. She's becoming one of my favorite characters of the show. And, the work that you and she do for this season, it's so perfect that they put you two together.
Which we heard was an afterthought, right, Deb? Who was it who told us that you two, they didn't have anything for you to do?
It was in the commentary.
And so that relationship, they threw you two together, and what a wonderful arc you two have.
Oh, it was so much fun. Yeah. Like we had so much fun working together. And it was definitely putting two totally different personalities on the show together.
Different personalities, but similar struggles in many ways, like needing to be seen, needing to be cared for because you're always the one doing the fixing and the caring. So it's such a perfect, interesting pairing, I think.
She says, like, I don't want to be lonely. And you go, me either. And you guys.
Oh, that scene in front of your trailer where you guys, she asks you if you're lonely. Yeah. And Sam, you take it's the most beautifully said line. I'm sure you didn't even think about it. And it just came out perfect. You just go, yes, I am. And it was very, like Kristin said, you can't catch the acting. You just see a very lonely man. And even now, it sort of just chokes up.
Me too. You take
back
this
of my throat.
Beautiful pause.
It's beautiful.
And then your answer is just so plain and yes. I am. It just
and the
killed
thing
us.
That's not on the page, what that choice or that moment, that instinct isn't on the page. And it's one of my favorite scenes of the first season.
Wow. I got to
Rutina on that front porch.
Again. Yeah, he was total loner, total lonely.
Yeah.
Lonely loner guy in his trailer at Warner Brothers lot.
At that Warner Brothers lot. So you were on the back lot at Warner Brothers a lot.
Yeah.
When you think back on this it's such an enormous experience. Are there things that stand out, things that you miss, and things that you really don't miss? Like what pops into your head is like, the things that you miss.
I mean, the easier one to answer is the things I don't miss, which is really very little. Like there's really nothing that's like I hate, except for being cold. But that was okay. Like that was okay. I don't miss the dieting, but the whole time, I feel like most of us the whole time appreciated it so much. Like we knew we were on something great. We knew. The whole time. It was never like, oh my God, I wish I would have known what I appreciated. The whole time we're just like, whoa, season 2, that's amazing. We're going to get a season 3. Oh my God, it's incredible. Like, because a lot of us had already been through the mill with shows that weren't as good or shows that didn't go. And this was HBO. This was the biggest show once it was done that HBO had ever had monetarily, I think.
Yes,
and then I think Game of Thrones eclipsed it. But it was like the most eyes, the most DVDs. It was just so massive. And it was Alan Ball. And it was so great. So
it was great.
Who I really loved working with that I didn't get to see. Well, I saw sometimes was Chris Bauer. Whenever I loved a night with Chris Bauer. Because whenever I had a night with Chris Bauer, it was just like, it was going to go deep all night. We were just going deep. Like,
he's
just
deep.
Talking, just going there. Like, just talking.
He's so genuine.
He's so great. I loved working with him.
Again, favorite thing from that first season is this him chasing you down about the nudist colony and everything like that. It's such a great, you two together are funny.
He's so funny.
It's great.
It's so good.
Definitely.
It's a really good point that you mentioned that we all appreciated it while it was happening.
Yeah, I think there was all of us, we were all grateful the whole time.
Yes, that's a really good point.
And it was amazing how it took off. I mean, the first season was I think it was kind of mixed reviews. The first season, like some good, some mediocre. And then it just took off like crazy.
Oh, well, this is amazing, Sam. Thank you so much for chatting with us.
It's so good, Sam, to see you and hear you and get to interview you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really just incredible. Like what a beautiful life experience we all got to have.
Deb, how good was that to see and hear Sam?
Sam Merlotte. I mean, he's a lead on the show, all 7 seasons.
Yeah.
And to really get his take and I hope some of what people at home are gathering from this is that we're all just people trying to make some entertainment and we're good at what we do, but we have insecurities and, the fact that he was willing to share all sides of that.
He said about his most memorable that we were all committed and grateful and weird.
And so weird.
And so weird. We were a carny family.
Yeah. And again,
good.
it's the perfect metaphor for Sam Merlotte, who is wonderful and nice and super weird.
I know. And he's thinking we're weird. We think he's normal. He thinks he's normal. We think he's weird. He thinks he's normal. No one, like, we're all weird. It's just
Everyone's weird.
Everyone's weird and so wonderful.
Next week on Truest Blood, relationships are tested. We'll talk about the meaning of love and what we can and can't overlook in its name.
And we sit a spell with the deeply talented Michael Raymond James, portrayer of Rene Lanier, a hardworking family man with a deadly pastime.
Well, thanks for listening, Trubies. Subscribe and follow wherever you listen to your podcast, and we'll see you next week.
Y'all come back now, you hear?
Truest Blood is produced by Safe Haven for HBO Max. Executive producers are Janina Gavankar, Kristen Bauer, and Deborah Ann Wool. Our producer is Gabrielle Gallon, and our audio producer is Christopher Wool. Our theme song was recorded just for this podcast by Jace Everett. Additional music was composed by Timo Chen. And remember, you can watch all of the original episodes of True Blood on HBO Max.